Hello and welcome to Conscious TV. I'm Ian McNay, and today our guest is Tim Freke. Right, because it all started, didn't it, when you were about 12 years old? You had this quite extraordinary experience. Can you talk us through what happened?
Yeah, for me, life has always seemed profoundly mysterious. Growing up, it always felt like the grown-ups were in some sort of coma. They were all kind of asleep, or they were all pretending that they knew what life is, and yet it seemed that none of them really did. You know, the teachers, my parents even, everybody just seemed to be walking around as if they knew what was going on, and yet life seemed so mysterious, so strange that we were here and we didn't know why. And I used to sit on this hill in Yeovil in the southwest of England where I grew up, very ordinary sort of town, and think about these things. What is life? What is death? What should we do with it? Why is there suffering?
But that's quite deep for a kid of 12 years old.
Yeah, it was always there for me. I don't know why. It always felt like life was this massive question, and that somehow I had to find a massive answer to meet this massive question of my existence, that I was, that this whole, not just me, the whole universe. And the more I discovered about the universe, the more profoundly strange and just mysterious. That's the word for me, mystery, unknowable. What is it? And what happened to me when I was 12 was I was sitting on this hill, as I would do, and, well, at the time it just felt like something happened. I didn't know what it was. I would say now that my state of consciousness profoundly changed. Something happened to my state of consciousness.
So you were sitting there, and you were looking at the view, whatever you were doing, and you had these questions vaguely going through your mind. And just talk us through the sequence of what actually happened.
Well, the sequence is a blur, to be honest with you, Ian, and it's a long, long time ago. What I do remember profoundly, though, and will always be with me, is the state I arrived in, very quickly and very suddenly, of this profound oneness with everything. And this sense that my own experience, I was suddenly aware of my experience in a new way, so that just the feeling of an embodiment was exquisite. The colours were very bright, the sounds were very beautiful to hear, like nature itself was a symphony. As if I'd stepped into a secret garden which was just next door, and I always knew it was there, and suddenly I was back home, where it felt right, where I didn't feel alienated like I did in the world. I did feel, as many people do, especially young people, very alienated, kind of like, whoops, wrong planet. What am I doing here? I don't fit in here. I don't belong here. And suddenly, here I was in the same place, feeling absolutely at home. Like, this is the place. And the biggest thing, the thing which made the hugest impact on me at the time and still does, was this immense love. Right. The whole universe was thick, permeated, held together, if you will, by love.
Again, you describe it in the book as being engulfed by an ocean of bliss.
Yeah, just
a pretty far-out experience at any age.
Yeah, and one that, it made such an impact. My whole life has been about returning to and diving into. I knew that what I was looking for was a state of consciousness, the place of going home, the place in which my questions were resolved rather than answered, was by entering this other state, what I call being deep awake now.
And then you talked about in the book again about this started a journey to find out more about what life is about and what actually happened to you.
Today we're going to be talking to Tim Freke. Tim is one of the keynote speakers at this year's Gateway to the Mind event in London. That's quite an experience to have as a teenager then, to be in the field and to have that kind of amazing connection, I guess, and to experience all of that. And then your journey seems to have led you to mystic Gnosticism. It's led you to write books about the Hermetic Pharaoh traditions. And how did all of that come about? Was that just your natural curiosity? I know from talking to you previously that you also studied a lot of Buddhism and Taoism. So obviously, like you said, a real explorer, a very curious person. So
I started looking for people who'd had the same experience, both people who were alive and studied with an awful lot of people, but also went east and studied a lot of Eastern philosophy, studied Western philosophy at university, written books on everything from Native American shamanism generally, Taoism, Zen, Sufism, because I have this hunger to unite them. It feels like, people would say to me, but what's your tradition? And I feel like, well, I'm a human being, so they're all my tradition. because they're all human beings who are exploring the same thing I'm exploring. And I want to be able to draw on all of them and learn from all of them and honor them. And so I've had the chance to explore and write about them. And what I found is that underneath, although they're very different, coming from different places and times, underneath, they're all marked by people who've experienced these shifts in consciousness and are trying to explain them and share them with others. And what I've been doing since then is really taking that wealth of experience in those different traditions and formulating a new way we can approach this natural human state of awakening.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Wired for Success TV. He is most definitely an expert on spirituality, having published more than 30 books with titles ranging from Zen Made Easy, The Heart of Islam, Taoist Wisdom, through to The Laughing Jesus. Though intriguingly, he styles himself as the stand-up philosopher. So we are thrilled today to welcome to our humble show Mr. Tim Freke. We would love to hear the story behind this wonderful title, Stand-Up Philosopher.
Well, you know, when I was studying philosophy at university, which is quite a long time ago now, philosophy had this image of really being very dull or academic, removed from life. Mm-hmm. And my feeling was philosophy wasn't like that. For me, it was a passion about trying to understand. Here we are, we're alive. We don't know what life is. It's all very interesting and somewhat strange. And philosophy is the art of learning to live wisely, of trying to find out what it is to be alive. It's something so immediate. It's something which changes your life more than anything else. So I wanted to present philosophy and to discuss philosophy in a way that made it accessible and fun. You know, I want people to care about what they think as much as they do about what they wear. Maybe more so. You know, that it's something you really want to get, that this really counts. It's just like for everyone. So the idea of doing stand-up philosophy, you know, it's not stand-up comedy that I do. I do philosophy, but I do it in the same spirit of stand-up comedy, in that it's fun, it's immediate, and I like to stand up. And as you can see by how much I wave my hands, I like to move around a lot. So, you know, I can let the energy come into the ideas, and then you feel the enthusiasm for the change they can make to your life.
You're listening to the Co-Creator Network.
I'm your host and ecstatic poet, Paul Goldman. Tim has an honors degree in philosophy and is an internationally respected authority on world spirituality.
Reality is by its very nature paradoxical. And that therefore, to understand the depths of what's happening to us right now, this strange journey we're on, we need a way of thinking which embraces paradox. Now, normally, we approach things logically, and I'm a big fan of logic. You know, I don't think we're logical enough. But logic is limited. It's very good at dealing with either or. It's good with dealing with life on the surface. But what we need is a way of thinking which can embrace paradox, which means not either or, but both and, as Carl Jung called it, actually. So let me give you an example of what I mean from this, and let me jump in with something a bit deep, which I'm sure many of your listeners will be familiar with now, which is quantum physics. You know, in quantum physics, without going into the details, these guys, over 100 years ago now, discovered something fundamental, which is that if you go down into the smallest particles, they couldn't tell when they were examining light. In one way, when they examined it, did an experiment, light appeared to be made up of all these little particles. And yet when they set up the experiment in another way, it appeared to be a wave, one wave. And they were faced with a real logical question. Well, is it a wave or is it a particle? And these amazing scientists, particularly one called Niels Bohr, came back to that and said, you know what? It's both. It's not either or. It's both a wave and a particle. And that doesn't make sense to the logical mind, but when you get down to the basis of reality, that's the way it is. You've got to look at it from two opposite perspectives at once. And this is what I call paralogical thinking. You see the paradoxicity of something. And it sounds a bit abstract, but once you get it, it opens up everything. For instance, right now, it seems to me, I'm experiencing the paradoxicity that I'm talking to you, and I know what's going on, and I know a load of stuff. I've written loads of books. I'm a pretty educated person. And yet, the opposite is also true. If I look deeper into the moment, I have no idea what life is at all. Or it's just information I have. Life is this incredible mystery, breathtaking in this moment. I can't begin to match it with words. What is this flow of colors and shapes and sounds? What is it? I don't know. I don't know. Now, what paralogical thinking allows me to do is go, well, which is it? Well, it's both of those. It's both. I both know and I don't know. Now, normally in life, I get caught on the surface where I know. And I need to be there. I need to know. Otherwise, I'd be lost. But when I become deep awake, I'm also conscious of the other pole, where I don't know, where it's the most profound mystery I can possibly imagine. And when I'm knowing and not knowing, that's when what I call the mystery experience arises.
You're listening to Unity Online Radio. Now, here's your host, Jesse Harriet.
Well, this episode, I just want to dive right in, Tim. You've done so much. I know you have a brand new book that's out called The Mystery Experience. So, in your opinion, what is spirituality, and how can we use it to help address the polarities that show up in our lives? And could, in fact, it become outdated? Can spirituality be outdated?
I don't think spirituality itself can be outdated, but I do think the way that it's talked about can. And I think it is. I think there's a lot of language and ideas around spirituality which have passed their sell-by date and they're starting to smell funny. And we need to replace them. And one of the things I'm doing in the new book, The Mystery Experience, is to create a whole new language of awakening, which is very simple and which is authentic. You know, what I love from people who are reading the book is they're going, oh, look, you're talking about life as I actually experience it. You're saying what I'm thinking. So what I'm trying to do is create a new form of spirituality. Now, spirituality, the word spirit, it just means essence. And essence comes from the Latin, esse, to be. It's your being. The whole of spirituality really is simply about waking up to your being, to your deep being. Now, once you see that, what you want is the simplest tools and the simplest and deepest philosophy which can allow you to do that. If you see that as in opposition to your humanity, your ego, your separate self, whatever you call our personal being, there's this whole struggle which goes on. And it's very hard. But once you realize that they're not in opposition, that they both sit together, and that's the paradox of your identity, that you are the one appearing as someone, then you can embrace both. And what I find then is that I can actually start to love Tim as he is. And I can start to love other people as they are. And I can connect through this incredible dance of being separate with the oneness in everything. And that, I think, is what spirituality is about. And my own feeling, Jesse, is that spirituality has a huge, huge role to play in the next step of human beings' evolution. I don't think it can be made without a deep understanding of spirituality. But I also think that at the moment, the one thing which is standing in the way of that happening is the state of modern spirituality. It's just not up to the job. Too much of it is confused. There's too much of it sloppy, fluffy. It pushes away the darkness. It's based on either-or thinking. Just have this, not that. It's not going deep enough. It's full of superstition. It's still tied with a lot of religious mumbo-jumbo, which we should have left behind centuries ago. So what we need, I think, is a whole fresh spirituality which speaks to life as it is now, which can take us forward.
Oh, wow, that's powerful. That's very realistic, and that's what I like about it. That's a part of what we want to do with the show. We want to ground it in practicality, a spirituality that we can use, because non-attachment and non-action, and some of the Eastern teachings are good, but there needs to be kind of sort of synthesis of the Eastern and Western ideas, and that's what it kind of sounds like you're saying.
Absolutely. You see, that's a both-and approach. That's a paralogical approach. You know, I grew up and was, beginning my exploration in the 70s. And at that time, my generation, and certainly myself, we rejected a lot of the spirituality which was around us, and we went east. And having been critical of Western spirituality, I can now see that what we did was we just uncritically embraced a lot of Eastern thought. And now I hear a lot of people, a lot of ideas which are commonplace, karma, enlightenment, non-attachment, and they're talked about as if they're just perennial truths, but they're not. They are Indian ideas. You don't find those ideas in China. You don't find those ideas in South America. You don't find those ideas in Europe. They're Indian ideas. And what we need to do is approach them with the same level of intelligent, critical thinking that we do with all the other ideas. There's a lot of these ideas get in the way. Enlightenment, for instance, I think is a huge idea which gets in the way.
that there's some ultimate state that we could achieve someday if we were only pure enough or meditated long enough or something. I really think it gets in the way. It sets up that idea that you have to destroy sometimes even your separate self. You have to get away from something. Well, you don't have to get away from anything. You simply have to notice something else as well. And that something else is your own deeper being.
And it's funny that you said that, because I've encountered a lot of folks that I'm just following the flow because the flow has taken us this way. They've experienced abuse from that, because in that destruction, they've had gurus or teachers to kind of sort of beat them down, and in essence trying to pull something else out and destroy that ego. And they hurt their feelings, they beat them down, they take things from them, expect them to give up everything and only follow their path.
Yeah, I've been there, I've done that, and it's not very nice. Essentially, what spirituality is about for me is love. When you see through the separateness to the oneness, and you see that you're connected to everything and everyone, there's this all-embracing deep love, which is exquisite. And for me, that's what's got to carry us through. I have people come to my retreats from all over the world, and I see people, and nearly everybody, their biggest hurdle is simply to love themselves. So what good can it do if there's somebody going, well, you're right not to love yourself, because that's the problem. You're the problem. Your ego, your separateness, your personality, that's what's standing in the way of you realizing God. And I just think that is pernicious madness, because actually nothing's standing in the way. And your separate self, your ego, your humanity, you've spent a lifetime developing it as a foundation from which you can awaken to this wonderful oneness. It's not the enemy, it's the foundation from which you wake up. And that way of thinking and that way of approaching it makes the whole process of becoming what I call deep awake really, really simple. I mean, it astonishes me, Jesse. I run a mystery experience retreat. I have people come, maybe 20, 40 people, and we spend time together from Friday till Sunday. And nearly every single person experiences for themselves this deep awake state. Not as some idea, but as something so tangible that you can feel the deep love in every cell in your body. You see the astonishment on people's faces, the wow. And they don't think they can experience that because they've been told it's only something you can do after, you have to struggle with yourself, or you have to become enlightened, or you have to be something other than you. And the truth is you don't. It's right there waiting for us. And when you see it, it is like coming home. It's the most incredible relief.
Oh, that's beautiful. Dale Allen Hoffman said the same thing, that there's an experience that comes along and it transcends logic, because, as a philosopher, you can dance us into a frenzy with words and terminology and talk about Basilides and Valentinus and, all those, Gnostic theologians and all of that stuff. But, at the end of the day, there is an experience of oneness that you're talking about.
What I love, Jesse, about all those people, all these dead dudes that I hang out with as an historian, they're all saying the same thing. They're all saying, look, we need a way of thinking which can help us come to a place which is actually beyond all thought, where you just directly see it. It's a gnosis. It's a deep knowing. And you know something you can never say, but it's so real. And if you were to say it, it would be something like, I don't know. Sometimes I think it's as simple as, do you know what? Everything is okay. Underneath all the suffering, life is good, and you can trust it. And you can be in love with it.
Yeah, like the grass is green right where I am, to borrow from Reverend David Alt here in Atlanta.
Beautiful.
And you know what, Tim? That approach can work anywhere, because sometimes my worry about, and I hate to say worry in spirituality, but it's the truth. My worry is that sometimes our approach won't work in Africa or in Haiti, or, because we become too far out. But this approach you're talking about, the love, this message works everywhere, all over the planet.
Yes, and what you just said there was really interesting. First of all, I love the fact that you said, this is my worry. And then you went, should I say that was spirituality? There is a great example of how it creeps into us without us even noticing. If you're spiritual, you don't worry. That is nonsense.
Right.
There are things worth worrying about, lots of things. And we should worry about them, and we should be concerned, and we should be out there doing something about them because we're so concerned. But you don't want to be just worried, because that would be awful. Don't be so concerned about the state of the world that you don't enjoy your own life or the moment you're in. But it's not either or, it's both and. You can be in this moment, and we can right now, as we are doing, can both be worried about that and loving the moment at the same time. And that's the both and. This thing you said about Africa, whether it's Africa or wherever, that's so close to my heart because, sometimes I listen, and I don't mean to be offensive to anyone, or only playfully, but, I sometimes think when I read a lot of the New Age books that are out there, I just think, I've just read how you can create your own reality and have everything you want in a fortnight, and I just think, what a shame that somebody doesn't take 1 million copies of this book and just send it out to Africa, because then they'd all have everything they wanted in a fortnight. And you just see the absurdity of some of the things which we're caught up in. What we need is something much deeper, something which allows us to see that what's happening here is that we're learning to love. We're learning to be all that we are. And what we are in our depth of our being is love. And then with that love, that goes everywhere. That goes, it's a sunny day here, and I am loving it. I'm loving looking at the garden. But last week, my mother was seriously ill. I thought she'd had a stroke. It was a sad and confusing and dark place for us all. But I could bring love to that, too. Right. Actually, she's now absolutely fine, I want you to know, and everything worked out well. But what I'm saying is this love comes everywhere. It makes the good things absolutely exquisite, and it makes the dark things kind of poignant, almost beautiful, like that heartbreak just opens you up and more love comes out. I was with my father who died 2 years ago, and he had a stroke. He was 6 months lying in a bed. He could move one arm, and he would lie there and he would try to say, help me, help me. It was incredibly distressing. I've been doing this spirituality thing for 40 years, but I didn't want to be unattached. To me, I wanted to be right there with him in the awfulness of the situation, but with this love. And I didn't want to be lost in it. I wanted to be in this both and, where part of me, my humanity, my heart was breaking, and then this deep being within me, the deep self, was just right there with it just as it is, no judgments, in the mysteries, not knowing. I don't know what this is. Just right here with this amazing being who is my dad. And he is going through this very, very difficult thing, and that's hard for me, and I'm right here with him. And when that happened, we would meet in this deep, poignant place, which was kind of beautiful despite everything, because there was love. And for me, that love can go everywhere. And the love is what comes when you find the deep self and embrace the humanity at the same time.
Right, the one and the many, like you were referring to.
Yes, exactly that. There really is only one of us. It really is all one. And you can know that for yourself. You can have that deep knowing. But for me, what that does, ironically, I chased that realization for most of my life, thinking that somehow when I really got it, the separateness would all disappear. But what's actually happened is the kind of the opposite, is that I've fallen in love with the separateness. This strange journey of life that we're on, with all of its terrors and beauty. I've fallen in love with life, just as it is. And I'm willing to undergo that process. And like everyone, sometimes that's great and easy, and sometimes that's really tough. But because it's both, I can meet other beings, other people, authentically, because it's like that for them too. There's nothing to push away. They too have things happening to them, as I do, which are difficult. They too have things inside of them, which are difficult, just as I do. Because we're all like that. Every human being is like that. Even the people that you think aren't like it, you get to know them, as I have done, you find out they're like that. That's because everything's paradoxical. We're all great souls, and we're all, we're all little human beings, vulnerable, doing our best.
Very true. We're human beings being human.
We are, and it's scary. Hey, it's scary. A lot of spiritual things I hear go, if you just love, you'll get rid of fear. And it's like, no, you won't. You won't. You'll try and you'll fail. Because to be human is scary sometimes. If you're a human being and you're not scared, you have not been paying attention to what happens to people. Because scary stuff happens all the time. The question isn't whether you can get rid of it. The thing is, you don't want to be lost in it just to be scared. That is awful. But to have this deep safety of your deep being, where you know that everything is fundamentally okay, allows your humanity to go through all the gambit of emotions that it feels. And then you see the paradox. Love involves a certain amount of fear. I have a little girl If she's in trouble, I love her and I'm scared for her. Now, that's part of loving. It's part of what it is. To love is to take the risk of being human. It's to actually take the risk that you will get hurt. And that takes courage. And courage, you see, courage is a really interesting thing, because courage isn't the absence of fear. That's foolhardiness. Courage is when you feel the fear which is natural in us, and yet you have this deep confidence in life, which is in the depths of your being, and that allows you to live courageously, to actually step into life.
This is very true. This is a very beautiful conversation. I want to shift things a bit. I want to play a quick word game. I'm going to give you a word, and then you tell me what you think about it. Let's start here. Pain.
Pain. I don't want to feel it. That's natural. But it opens me up. It makes me real. It grounds me in my body. I would like to avoid it, but when it comes, I have no choice but to be with it. And if I can be with it from a deep place, I can heal it. And as it heals, I grow and evolve.
Wow. Happiness.
Happiness is so sweet. Sweet. We want sweet. We would all like yum without yuck, and I'm no exception. And happiness is such a beautiful thing. Yet happiness without also service becomes kind of self-indulgent. I often hear, people say, oh, I just want my kids to be happy, or I just want to be happy myself. And I love that. But the truth is, I don't want that for myself or my kids. I want them to be happy and, as well, to give, to express that by making others happy. So the key thing for me is, again, the both and. Happiness for yourself, yes, and sharing it, making others happy, bringing out the beauty in others, making other people see how gorgeous they really are.
Consciousness.
Consciousness. It's what defines us, it's what we are, and it's arising on a sea of unconsciousness. I see it like there's a field of unconscious awareness, like a giant mind, and right now it's arising as centers of conscious being. There's this field of unconscious being, and it's arising as all these different centers of conscious being. So where, as conscious beings, we're all separate and yet reach into your depths, and there's one field of unconscious being, and that's what we are at our depths. We're both of those. We're like waves of consciousness rising on this sea of unconscious being. And when we see both of those, that's when we become deep awake.
Oh, wow. That is so beautiful. Pleasure.
I am a huge fan of pleasure. There's a line I put in one of the books where, the people say, you make your body a temple for the soul. And I've always felt, yeah, I like that, but I also want my body to be a nightclub for the soul. I want it. And one of the things which I notice about spirituality is that waking up is pleasurable. No one told me that. When I become deep awake, I'm loving what I'm smelling and what I'm tasting and what I'm touching and what I'm seeing, and just to breathe, just to feel the breath come into my lungs. It's like, that's kind of almost, it's kind of sexy just to breathe. It's, that's good, isn't it?
I know what you mean. It is.
Yeah, it's good. And it's like, here we want to feel pleasure. Well, spirituality will turn your pleasure ratio up 100%.
Wow. It will. Purpose.
Purpose. I feel with this paradoxical nature of life that we each have a universal purpose and we each have an individual purpose, because we are both universal beings and individuals at the same time. And the universal purpose, it seems to me, is to be part of this amazing process through which the one is appearing to be many, to wake up to the fact that it is one. Or to put it in another language, that the one is appearing to be many to fall in love with itself. And we're all on that journey of learning to wake up and be love. And then each one of us, that's about the self-realization, the inner journey. But the other side is self-expression. That's the polarity. That's the paradox. It's both. And so that purpose is, what can I bring from this unique form I'm in, this unique humanity? What can Tim or you bring to the world? And for me, that becomes your purpose, what you can bring and share with others. And for me, one of the things I always want to give people when they come to my retreats or read my books, and I really hope they're going to get this from my new book, is to feel empowered to really bring what they are to everyone else, because we need everyone to do that. We really do.
Wow. And it's beautiful that you said that. It sounds like, Tim, I've heard you talk about, your early awakening and your feeling of oneness when you were younger, but it sounds like you've had many awakenings. Tell us about your latest experience. What led you to where you are now? What was the catalyst?
Oh, well, it started when I was a little boy, and I stumbled into this deep awake state when I was 12 years old, and there was the love, and there was the oneness, and that set me off on a journey now 4 decades, in which I've continually refound this place and shared it with others. And what I've really wanted to do, the thing which I felt like, this is what I can do, this is my purpose, is to try and find ways to express it so simply and clearly that I can take other people to this place that I know so well. Not because I'm a special person, because if people think that will just get in the way. It's precisely because I'm not a special person, or no more special than you or anyone else. It's just because I'm alive, and I've concentrated in my life on how to enter the mystery experience, the deep awake state. And I can show people how to do it really quickly and really easily. And like I said, people come, they spend 3 days with me, nearly everyone, nearly every single person gets it, and really, really gets it. I'm hoping that the book is going to do the same. And so my hope is that my journey of finding and refinding and going deeper can help other people avoid a lot of the dead ends I've been down and just get to the essence, get to the real experience, the mystery experience directly.
Oh, wow, that is beautiful. One more word I want to throw at you, family. There are some of my colleagues on Unity that really dwell into that. Reverend Ogun, and with their show, they really delve into that, but I want to talk about it from this perspective. Where does family fit in spirituality? Because sometimes I hear more of the individual in spiritual talk, but I don't hear much about family.
You're so right, Jesse. Yeah, my big transformation came to me when I thought that if I was a first-class seeker, I had to be like a monk, and very, very nearly became one. And that if I wasn't up to that, then I could be like a householder, as they say in the East, or a family man. And then my life took me in the direction of having a family, and it was the most important thing that's ever happened. Because I really saw that in family life is all the things you need to learn. It's all just there. That unconditional giving, all the challenges, the beauty, just written into the fabric of life. Now, when I hear a lot of spirituality that I don't resonate with, nearly always it's being spoken by single guys who don't have any kids.
Very true.
I think, family, if you're blessed enough to have one, is the most wonderful, wonderful thing. It's the whole of life, just as it is unfolding. This process of awakening is not, spirituality is actually encoded into the process of life itself. It's not separate from life. It is life. It's just living life consciously.
Yes, and this is exactly what we're about here at the show. Let's go into the inspiration behind your latest work.
Well, what I've wanted to do is, after all these decades explore, I've written books on every spiritual tradition in the world just about. And what I wanted to do now is to distill that down into a new form so that I can capture the essence and take people to this awake state as quickly as possible. And the way that I think is the easiest way is to connect simply through the mystery. We're here right now in this moment, and we're alive. And we have a story about what that means. I have a story about who Tim is, and I'm talking to Jesse, and I've got a new book coming out, and I'm talking about the book, and da-da-da-da-da. And on one level, on the surface of life, all of that's true. But if I dive right down into the depths of life right now, I have no idea what life is. I don't know what it is. In fact, I want to suggest nobody knows what it is. No one knows what's going on right now. That's incredible. We pretend we do, but nobody knows what this is. Everything we found out about it, we find it's more and more mysterious. We now know through science, of which there's a lot in my book, and I'm a big fan, we now know that physical matter isn't there. It really isn't. It's 99.139 is nothing. It's not there. Nothing's what it seems. So here we are, we're alive, and we don't know what this is. That's incredible. Now, if you pay attention to that mystery, and, your listeners can do it now, if you pay attention to the mystery, there's your story, that's great. Just leave that for a moment, that'll be there. and just pay attention to the mystery of the moment that you don't know what life is, consciousness changes. That's what I call the mystery experience. If you go deeply enough into that mystery experience, you start to become deep awake. You go into the deep mystery, you become deep awake. If you go into the depths further, you will find this experience of the deep self, this deep knowing of the deep self. And there is this deep love, this love that embraces everything. So for the mystery experience, the book is a journey. It's a journey in 4 parts, which takes you into the deep mystery, into the deep self, into the deep love, and then back out into your life just as it is, to live with this awareness of both and, of the polarities, paralogically, to be able to embrace all that you are, both this depth and the surface. So right now, here I am. On the surface, I'm Tim, I have a story, everything is the way it seems. But at the depths, there's this profound sense of love and deep being, and I have no idea about anything, actually. There are no words. It just is. It's beyond words. And they are sitting side by side. And when we can approach our life with both of those, then you become enlivened. I don't know about enlightened, but you become enlivened. You start to become what I call a lover of life. For me, the journey is no longer about becoming enlightened or getting away from here or becoming some sort of Uber Tim who's, you meet and he's full of light. I don't want interest in any of that.
Right.
And for me, it's now just about being a lover of life.
Yes.
And that's what my book's about. It's a revolutionary new approach to spirituality. It's very critical of a lot of outdated ideas, but gives in exchange, I think, a lot of very clear, simple, lucid ideas and practical techniques. Very, very practical, which can take you on this journey into yourself to become deep awake and to love your life.
Real quick, just to give us a snippet, what are some tools right where we are for our listening audience that they can implement in their lives, in addition to the retreat, because I want to talk about that as well, but what are some tools that they can use?
Yes. Well, the very first one, I've already mentioned, which is just to be conscious of the mystery. And that's really to wonder. If you're looking at your life and you are not filled with wonder, you're half asleep.
Right.
If you've got to the point where you're just getting on with your life, then you are asleep, because right now, what's happening is utterly wonderful. It's amazing, utterly amazing, beyond comprehension, that we are communicating. I mean, right now, let me describe what I see happening right now, Jesse, because it always blows me away. See, on one hand, I'm on the phone to you in America, and we're talking. That's on the surface. But actually, just look. I'm a conscious being. I don't know what that is, but I am. I'm a presence of consciousness within which is arising ideas right now. I don't know what an idea is. What is an idea? But they're arising, and then something to do with all of this porridge in my head is making those ideas turn into words. They've become encoded into words, and then my jaw is moving, and my breath is puffing, and those words are now encoded into the air. Now it's in the air, and then it's going down the phone, and then by the miracle of technology, it's arising in your phone, and now it's vibrating in the phone, and then it's going through the air again and into your ear. Now the ideas are in your ear. They're vibrating, and then your porridge is going, and then these ideas are arising in consciousness over in America and wherever anyone's listening to this. That's incredible. That's incredible. And we just take it for granted. And that's happening all the time. So one of the biggest things, it's so simple, is just remember to wonder. The minute you remember to wonder, you will start to wake up. If you wonder deeply enough, you will really wake up.
Oh, wow. So, Tim, let's go into the mystery experience.
The mystery experience retreat that's what made me write the book. I was doing these retreats and I was sharing this new way of awakening. And I was just astonished. If you told me just 10 years ago that I could get together 40 people and we would all, by the Saturday night, be sitting there in the deep love so strongly that no one could miss it, I would have said that's not going to happen. That's unlikely. But actually it happens time and again, time and again. So I've got a simple process, and I take people through this. And it's a delight for me. I want to share this with as many people as I can while I'm alive. That's my purpose. Just share this with as many people as I can. And if that means traveling to America or wherever else I'm going, Japan, then I'm willing to do that.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for speaking with us today. We hope you'll come back and bless us again with your powerful teachings, and we can continue the conversation more.
This is London Real. My name is Brian Rose. Joining me is Sonia Dubell, who's a former guest on London Real. Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming here.
Thank you for having me.
And not to be upstaged by Sonia is Mr. Tim Freke.
Well, how would you explain what awakening is?
One of the things that I did when I was younger is work with a lot of people who were dying. And what I saw is that when people face death, suddenly they wake up. To, oh my God, I'm alive, and I don't know what it is, and I don't know what's going on, it's amazing, and just to drink this water is incredible, to breathe, to see you, to meet another conscious being, to look in your eyes and know that I'm connecting with consciousness.
So that's being deep awake.
Whoa, yeah. Okay. You start having these experiences which are very familiar and accessible, of a profound sense of oneness, that you come into a place where on the surface of life, like waves on a sea, we're all separate and everything's individual, but as you go down into the depths of life, as it were, there's a fundamental oneness. So you feel this both separate and not separate. You feel connected. And from that comes this, what I call deep love, this incredible sense of embracing all being, in being in love with being and in love with all beings.
Yeah.
And that's the real hallmark for me of what I mean by awakening, is that love.
Absolutely. It actually feels that that is what you just said is the primary, because you first need to be in love with being.
Yeah.
And that is the primary. You know, you can't go out and be in love with all beings until you can first really be in love with the fact that you are alive. You are having this living human experience. Yeah, an awakening to me. What does it mean to you, Brian?
Well, when he was talking about being deep awake, I just thought about meditating. And just when I wake up from meditation, everything I see is like beautiful, and I just cherish everything a bit more. So just being very present, very awake, very in the now. I read bits of your book, and I found there are a lot of abstract things that you talked about. And I was just wondering, what are like some of the practical things you do to get people to be deep awake?
My first awakening happened when I was 12. And then I've been following it for now 4 decades, trying to find it, deepen it, understand it, and share it. So everyone can have that experience so strongly that the love is vibrating in every cell in their body. And it's not an intellectual understanding, although the intellect can help you. It's a total experience. It's a physical, emotional, mental, it's a total experience. So you can't miss it. And that is possible. And the things that I get people to do is really to do what you're already doing, to look, to listen, to touch, but to do it in a different way, and to do it being conscious of what you're doing. So like right now, I'm aware, I'm looking at your beautiful faces.
Wow, thank you.
Really, it's like, here's all this unique individuality. And then what I'm connecting with, I look at your eyes, there's your eyes, and then what I'm connecting with, I can't see. What I'm connecting with is conscious being, and I can't see it, but I know it's there. And I know that I'm conscious of being. But I can't see myself. I see my body, but I can't see conscious being. I can't see what's looking. And one of the great teachings of all the spiritual, mystical traditions is to find that which is looking but can't be seen. If you look at each other, conscious that you are something that can't be seen, connecting with something that cannot be seen through looking, it changes that experience, and you start to become aware of this other polarity.
Yes. And whether you see it or not, it exists, it's pulsating, it is here all the time.
Is that collective consciousness or something else?
I think the idea of the collective unconscious from which consciousness arises works best for me. One way that I describe it, it's like there's a field, to use a scientific term, of unconscious being, which is arising as these centres of conscious being. So here we are, 3 centres of conscious being within the unconscious field. And here's the floor, it's part of the unconscious field, and the planet, and that's just, it's being, but it's being unconsciously, the chairs we're sitting on. And then through these incredible bodies, the field has become conscious of itself. And there's a little bubble of consciousness. One of the analogies I love is if you think about the field of sound. So, right now, we are sitting in a field of music. We can't hear any of it, but it's full of radio waves. There's radio 1 over here, going radio 3. We can't hear any of it, but it's all, this is pulsating with music. It's just, it's silent. And yet take a radio, tune it in, power it up, and bingo, there's music.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And you could take the radio and then go, hell, where's that music? And take it to bits and go, I'm looking for the music, I'm looking for the music. And at the end of it, you'd have a lot of bits and no music. And you can do the same with the body. You can take the body to bits, go looking for consciousness or experience, and you won't find it. You just find a whole load of fleshy things and porridge in your head. Yeah. Because the thing you're looking for isn't in the body, like the music's not in the radio. The thing is everywhere. Awareness is everywhere. It's the field. But it's become conscious of itself through the forms that it generates. And then through this form, there's this little bubble, and then I'll go off to Birmingham, I'll take my bubble with me, and I'll be like, bye guys, see your bubble later. And you'll take your bubble wherever your bubble goes. And here we are, we're kind of meeting. And we're these centers of consciousness within this unconscious field. So we're both separate and not separate at the same time. And then the awakening becomes, here on the surface we're separate, can you be conscious of the depths where we're not?
You mentioned meditation in your book, and I find that when I say the word meditation, so many people turn off. But when you're talking about being deep awake, it's not really meditation per se. It's more of just awareness.
You can call it meditation. It's a good word, but it comes with a lot of baggage.
There's some back information that people need, because religion, spirituality, meditation, they often come with, like you say, a lot of baggage. And people have this idea that meditation, you must go and sit on a mat and just chill out. We need to understand what is the inspiration for me to sit down on a daily basis and just be still, connect to my inner self. Why do I need to do this? And in the beginning, it will be 1 minute, 2 minutes, and you'll drift, and then you'll come back, and you'll drift, and you'll come back, and eventually you'll have this ability to stay in that presence with yourself. You'll notice quicker and quicker how your mind drifts off. You'll bring it back sooner, and over time you'll be able to get this beautiful stillness that is so nourishing and healing for our souls. We need to have that break from the treadmill of thoughts, and that practice will actually end up giving us the ability to become more aware, and more aware, so that when you speak about, you have this consciousness and then you have the bigger consciousness, and even though you're going through your life, you're always in this bigger consciousness, even though you're operating in the normal world, but it gives you that awareness, that ability to stand back from the everyday things and not take everything so personally, so big. You're able to step back and almost look at everything as a kind of oneness, if you like, but still operating as an individual person who's having this individual human experience as well. And that's the inspiration that I get to sit every morning.
Yeah, and I think it's exactly what Sonia said. It gives you a really nice perspective on the world, because you can't take everything too seriously, because there's just kind of a bit more of a perspective you have on everything. It doesn't matter that someone yelled at you because of this, or that this wasn't done, because in the grander scheme, it's not that important.
No. If you're in touch with your deep being, which is really not as odd as it sounds, but if you are, if you love being, then what happens to you is always okay, even when you hate it, even when it's horrendous. There's a place where you still love being, and being just loves being. It already does. Your being already loves being. As soon as you contact it, I love being. And therefore what happens in your experience, which is the waves up and down, oh, it's great, oh, it's shit, oh, it's great, oh, it's shit again. All of that just comes and goes as ever. And you in it, like you are on the surface, but there's this deep place where it's just like, wow. I mean, the problem that you described for most people, what you described as the treadmill, the problem is they're just going with the flow.
Yeah.
But they're going with the flow unconsciously. But they're just going with the flow. And the first step is stop going with the flow.
Totally. Yeah,
so the first thing is step out of it, become conscious of it, and choose a different direction. As you become conscious, then the flow starts to happen, and you can intervene when necessary. Yeah. And you're in this paradoxical place where you're both. It's both happening, and you like it, and you hate it, and you love it, and you try. So there's the opposites coexist. The two start happening together, and then there's this deep peace and this intense passion.
We've got a few minutes left, but I wanted to ask you, I was reading a quote that's attributed to L. Ron Hubbard, who supposedly said, the way to make $1 million is to start a religion. I was wondering if this is what you're trying to do.
The bloody opposite, unfortunately. I know exactly how to set up a cult. I've studied so many religions and cults. I know exactly what to do, know how to run it, know how to make a lot of money. But it's the one thing I'm really not interested in. For me, hence the stand-up philosopher, hence the idea of, come on, what I want. I mean, it looks very lonely, actually, being L. Ron Hubbard. Or any of those people,
Sure.
What I want is for us to meet authentically, which means to meet in our vulnerable humanity and in this deep self at the same time. It doesn't become about me. It's not about any one individual being elevated. It's the opposite. It's finding the place where we're all one.
Okay.
And then appreciating the places where we're all separate. That's what I love.
Yeah, I was reading a line in your book, and it said on page 20 of the Mystery Experience, it says, because when we're real with each other, magic happens. I love that. That's more about
Isn't
like
that
London
beautiful?
Real.
That's exactly it.